Welcome back, and today we're going to be taking a look at the new TRIVISA EQU. These come in at $57, and I do have a 5% discount code NICK. That'll give you 5%, and it helps out a little bit. And if you want to help support the channel, I will have a link to this down in the description. It helps support the channel and what I do here, but it's not a big deal if you don't. So let's get into it. We have a full-size EDC knife coming in at 8.26 inches with a 3.5-inch Japanese Tanto blade of 10CR 15CO MOV, which is basically VG10, which is a excellent corrosion resistance steel. Takes a very, very keen edge and has good edge holding ability for its price tag. Also, you have a nice stonewash finish that looks really nice, should hide wear very, very well. You have a nice long swedge up top that thins out that tip a little bit. However, it's still nice and robust at that tip. You have a small row of grippy jimping there. I think they should have extended it a little bit out here if you wanted to have something for the thumb, but you know, it's not something I really worry about that much. You do have a sharpening choil that clears that plunge, and you may have one or two sharpenings before it starts to widen up in the back. And because of the stop pin placement out of the way, you can widen that up yourself if you want to. You have a short height flat grind on this primary portion right here that comes down to around 17 thousandths behind the edge. However, it's going to thicken up rapidly as you start to sharpen it up because of how sharp that grind height is. So, you know, as long as you keep a nice sharp edge on it, and depending on how much you sharpen your knives, it should be fine. And this Tanto portion ranges from around 23 to 25 thousandths up here by the tip. So it's pretty nice and reinforced. And then you have, like I said, the Japanese Tanto, which is curved like that, which in my opinion is a lot more effective for more things, at least in the type of cutting I do, because you have this fairly straight portion right here for, you know, doing cuts, push cuts through cardboard and stuff like that, and getting a lot of power in this section. And then here you can do some of your either slicing task, or you can use that secondary point, which is not as pronounced as like American style Tanto, but you can still use it somewhat. But I like using this belly right here for pulling through things like that. And you can use that pokey tip to stab into a bag of potato chips or something like that. Now I think it's time to see how this thing performs. It feels like it has a decent edge out of box, at least for the straight edge portion so far. And because of that straight edge portion, you're able to do this rather easily. It feels like it's slicing pretty good. Now, it's not the thinnest behind the edge, so it's not going to be a super slicer. But as long as you keep a nice sharp edge on it, you'll be able to get through it just fine. Only time you would ever really come into trouble is maybe some double, triple wall cardboard, and that cardboard starts to bind up on that thicker portion behind the edge. But at this type of stuff, no problem. You got the neutral grip on the handle, so it's fairly comfortable. It is a little skinny, but it was comfortable doing this lighter task. And now we're going to test the ergos and see how the edge wants to bite into this piece of pine. So I'll start off with some light pressure, and it's doing a pretty good job. The edge feels pretty nice, and it's fairly comfortable. Like I said, you do have a slender handle. So, you know, longer term cutting like this would probably start to fatigue your wrists and your forearms, because I am having to squeeze down on the handle a little bit tighter just to keep a good positive grip on it. No hot spots that I noticed at all, and I was able to get a lot of force into the wood, so definitely enjoyed that. And even though the scales aren't completely contoured, you got a very nice chamfer on both sides of the edges of the scales, making it nice and comfortable in hand. Now this is where it was kind of a flop for me, because the straight edge portion felt decently sharp, and it actually felt pretty sharp. But that Tanto area is very thick behind the edge, and it had no bite whatsoever. I mean, you can see it's skating off the top of it. So I shut it down pretty soon. I think I made 8 cuts. It was giving me blisters right away because of how hard I was having to push into the rope, and just I wasn't gonna do it any further. So we move on to the rest, and I'm able to get that secondary point of the tanto edge into the material and still get it done. And it has some edge, but if you've ever cut in something fibrous like sisal rope, you know you need some bite to that edge, and this one definitely had no bite. So they may have just over polished it, and that extra thickness at that tip made it even more difficult to push through. So doing this type of stuff, I'm pretty much able to do it pretty decent. As you can see, it ripped it right there. And I think it's just because of how thick it is at that tip. Still had, you know, decent enough bite to get through the denim, but you know, I think that tanto area is completely slap worn out. Now it is VG10 or 10CR, same stuff. You could easily probably strop it back, or I could sharpen it up, and it'd probably perform way better. Now let's take a look at the deployment and action of the knife. You have a front flipper and you have a traditional flipper back here. The jimping's good. It grabs a hold of the finger nicely, and the flipper tab has jimping as well. And I get a nice snappy flip on it, riding on ceramic ball bearings with a ceramic detent ball. It's very silky smooth. It has that very hydraulic smooth feeling to it, and nice snappy action. Trivisa Knives, all the knives I've tested from them all had that nice snappy action, and they were all pretty darn smooth. The front flipper works as well, but I never liked the front flipper combo like this because of, you know, if you're not thinking about it, my hand's right here, and I go to flip it, it's hitting my finger, and that just gets in the way. You can roll it all the way around without losing contact. If you like doing that kind of thing, you can do the reach around, which is probably the easiest for me. As long as you have your hand back here, I can easily front flip it as well. But like I said, you just got to be cautious of where your hand is before you actually use it, so you don't get in contact with the regular flipper. Let's take a look at the handle area. You have a very neutral grip on this one. My particular one has canvas micarta scales that are blue. They're nice to the touch, offer good traction. It's got like a slow contour from here down on both sides, and it's softened very well. It was pretty darn comfortable in hand. Now, being that it's narrow in this dimension from here to here, I found that I was squeezing it a little bit tighter, so I didn't so it wouldn't spin in the hand at all, which would eventually start to fatigue your wrist and forearms. No matter what grip I hold it in, because of that neutral handle, it's nice and comfortable. And the way this slants down, if you do this type of grip, it's nice and comfortable there too, to put your thumb up there. Your pivot is flush with the scales. It's got the Trivisa logo there. Torx T8 on this side, and you have Torx T6. I wish I would have went all T8, of course. You do have a lanyard hole for the lanyard people there. Now, it is tip up right hand carry only, but it is inset into the micarta, and the screws are countersunk. A nice job, and it sits all the way down into the pocket. All you see is this little corner sticking up. You have a micarta backspacer with a geared pattern that is a little bit raised. It offers a little bit of traction. However, I never really notice it whenever I'm cutting. Let's take a look at the lockup. Mine's sitting at around 40% or so. No play up or down, left or right. A very tight lockup. Access to the lock bar is excellent because of how low this comes down. And you have a chamfer on the lock bar with this nice little texture. It's very comfortable to get my finger in there. No problem whatsoever. Your stainless steel liners are flush with the scales, and they did a good job of relieving weight as much as they could on the show side, and a little bit right down there on the lock side as well. And they also did a little skeletonization on the flipper tab. Quick weight in grams, 101.5 grams or 3.58 ounces. Awesome. One other little detail I forgot to mention is they got this chamfer right here, and I thought it was for when you flip it, but you'd see my finger is going to miss that every time. But I think it's so you can get contact with that jimping. You know, hopefully you can see that there. so you can sort of still makes contact. But that is sitting pretty far back on the knife. I don't really think I would ever sit like that. Size comparison with the Ontario Rat 1 and 2. Next up, the Trivisa Door and the Petrified Fish Scholar. Last, we have the QSP Swordfish and the Sativian ST131. Now for my nitpicks and complaints, I would have loved to see this a hollow grind right here, deep hollow grind, so it wouldn't thicken up so quick once you start to sharpen it. Also, like I said, this portion just didn't have that much bite to it, even though this portion was nice and sharp. Love to see them extend the sharpening choil a little bit, but you still have a few sharpenings before it starts to widen up, so that's just a very minor nitpick. And I definitely think they missed the mark by not having this reversible pocket clip. But other than that, I love the aesthetics of it. It's nice and comfortable no matter which grip you hold it in. It's nice and snappy, even though I don't think they needed the front flipper. I much rather a traditional flipper. It just works a lot easier for me, and I find it more comfortable. But overall, I think it's a good knife, priced well for the materials you're getting. And like I said, I even have a 5% discount code if this is one that interests you. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all in the next one. Hey, 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 hey.